Good morning and welcome to our very first video art lesson. This week I'm going to be posting a video around 1 o'clock every day, so Thursday through Friday, of a different video art lesson where we talk about a different piece of ancient art. Today we are going to start with the Aztec people. The Aztecs lived where Mexico is today. I have a map right here so we can see the Gulf of Mexico, the Pacific Ocean. So this is like the lower part of Mexico. They were known for being a rather fierce kind of people. They were a tribe of warriors. So every male in this society were raised to become a warrior and a soldier. They were some of the most important and powerful people in Mesoamerica at the time, and they rose to power through being very fierce, very willing to take on any other society that challenged them. So today we're going to talk about a very important piece of art from the Aztec people. This is the piece of art we're going to talk about. It's called the sunstone or the calendar stone. This is carved from a piece of solidified lava. So when a volcano erupts and lava goes down, it eventually cools into this sort of rock that's very easy to carve. So they got this large piece of solidified lava to carve into. This piece of art weighs about 24 tons. So 1 ton is 2,000 pounds, which means that this piece of art weighs 48,000 pounds and it is 12 feet across. This piece of art was lost to the Mexican people for about 3,000 years, and it was found in the year 1790. It was buried under the central square of Mexico City, where Mexico City is today. So it's currently on display at Mexico's National Museum of Anthropology. So what we're looking at here, we'll start in the center. So right here, this is where they depicted the sun god. His name is Tonatiuh. And you can see his little face, so his eyes, his mouth with the tongue sticking out. Right here, these were sort of like ceremonial earrings that somebody high up in the society would wear. And right here, you could see his 2 hands holding what they believe to be a human heart. And then around him, you see 2 different calendar systems. They don't make much sense to us today, but these calendar systems meant to predict things such as agricultural seasons, so when was the best time to plant their crops to feed their people, and it also depicts what they referred to as unlucky days, which they thought were the most common days for bad things to happen, as well as holy days, just like our calendar represents holy days, so they also had holy days to represent their gods. So what we are going to do today, we are going to create our own piece of art of our own sunstone that'll look something like this. So before we get started on this Aztec sun project, down below I've left 2 links. One is a short article on the sunstone from kidsdiscover.com, and I left another one, it's another YouTube video titled Aztec Myth of the Unlikeliest Sun God. So I highly recommend you check those out. They're both really informational, and the video especially is pretty fun, so I would definitely check that out. So to create this project, you're just going to need a few things that you have around the house. So our first thing that we will need is obviously a piece of paper. So this is a thicker piece of paper. It came from my sketchbook that looked like this. If you are interested in buying a sketchbook, or if this is your first time wanting a sketchbook, this is the kind I recommend. It's fairly cheap at Michael's or Hobby Lobby, and they always provide coupons online or on their app. So you could always get one of these for 40% off if you have that coupon. Again, it's online or on the app. If you can't find it, just shoot me an email and I can email you that coupon if you want to get one for this break while we work on these art projects. So I have my paper. I'm going to need something to draw with. You can use a pencil, a pen. I'm going to use a permanent marker just so you can see it. And lastly, you're going to need a couple things to trace. And it doesn't really matter what these things are. I have like a little yellow cup. I have the lid of a coffee container. And lastly, I have a container of disinfecting wipes, which I'm sure we all have somewhere in our house right now. So, and then something to color with. So with mine, I used paints. I used these watercolor paints that I'm sure most of us are familiar with. If you don't have paints at home, anything will work. Crayons, color pencils, markers, whatever you happen to have. Um, since we're all working from home right now, please don't worry about the exact brand or type that you have. Just whatever you happen to have at home will work. So let's get started. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is trace our circles. So with your smallest circle, I'm going to use the bottom of this cup. I'm going to hold it flat with the top of my hand and then trace around the bottom. If you're using a Sharpie, be aware that the Sharpie is going to leave a mark on the bottom of your cup. So please don't use your best cups. Let's see, there's my line. Oh. I have my first circle. It's a little wonky, but it's fine. It'll work. So then take your next size circle up. I'm going to put that on top and trace that as well. There we go. And it looks a little wonky, but remember we're going to add some design, so don't even worry about it. And then our last size circle, this size, perfect. So I'm going to hold it flat, trace, and there I have 3 circles. So I've kind of run out of room on the sides. If you want to add one more shape, you can kind of just freehand it, meaning you're not tracing anything. So now I have my circles set up. So just like our sunstone, we want to start with the face in the middle. So if you remember from our sunstone, you can rewind and look again. There was a face of the sun god Tonatiuh in the middle. So we are going to start with the eyes. The eyes are always the best place to start, with 2 sort of arched shapes. And then we're going to do 2 more arched shapes below. You don't want to do it too big because you need to save room for the rest of the face. But right now I have 2 little almond shapes in the middle of my paper. And then I'm going to add something like this that kind of makes it look like our sun has top and bottom eyelids. That was sort of like a stylistic thing the Aztec people enjoyed in their art. Now we're going to add our, I guess it's the iris of the eye, because we're going to add the iris, but we're not going to add a pupil. That gives it a sort of different, odd kind of look that we're going for. So we have our eyes with our iris and our eyelids. Sorry, my dog's in here. You can probably hear him. And now we're going to add our nose with sort of this kind of shape. We're going to add some nostrils. And now we're going to do the tricky part. So remember, we talked about how in the sunstone, his tongue was sticking out. So we want our tongue to stick out too. So we're going to do a sort of V shape right underneath the nose. Go down. And then sort of follow that same shape. This is our top lip. And now we're going to add our tongue. You do a long tongue, a short tongue, whatever your circle allows. So we do our tongue, a little line in the middle. Now here's the tough part, which is drawing the bottom lip. So we're going to go down and down. So if my face looks a little bit different, that is because it is, because my phone stopped recording and didn't tell me. So now we're starting over. So we did our upper lip, we did our tongue, and now we need to do our lower lip. So we're going to go down just like this on either side of the tongue. And then we're going to add a little bit of like a black triangle around the tongue to make it look like that's like the inside of his mouth. So we have our eyes with the iris, we have our nose and our mouth, and now we just need to decorate the face a little bit. So I think up top I'll do sort of like a rectangle thing, and maybe under the eyes I'll do kind of like a curved triangle. And then maybe I'll add a few little decorations. And so there is my finished face. So I'm pretty happy with the face. Remember, the face represents our sun god, Tonatiuh, of the Aztec culture. So now we're going to move on to the next ring. So he is the sun god after all, so we're going to add some sun rays coming out from our sun god's face. So I have my sun rays, and as you can see, where did it go? Oh, as you can see on this one, I added these sort of rays in between to give it sort of like a flowery look. I think on this one, I'll just add some decorations instead of the extra rays. If you want to do extra rays, that's totally up to you. This is your project after all, so you don't have to copy exactly what I'm doing. I'm just showing you how to set it up. So maybe some little triangles around the edges. So I have my face and my rays. So from here on out, I'm going to decorate the bands sort of a different style. I'm going to stick with the sun theme because I want to bring it all back to the sun god and our sunstone. So I'm going to quickly fill in each row. I'm going to speed it up a little bit, and then we will wrap it up and you guys can go ahead and get started on your own sunstone. And there you have it. There is our finished sunstone piece. And now the only thing left to do would be to color. So again, I used watercolor for my first one. I think it turned out pretty good. Obviously, you do not have to use watercolor. You could use crayons, color pencils, markers, or you could just leave it black and white. That's totally up to you and definitely depends on what you have. Again, all you need is a piece of paper. You do not have to use the sketchbook paper, but if you do and would like to buy a sketchbook, please look for that coupon online. I think the sketchbook can typically only cost about $8 or $9, and with the 40% off coupon, that really helps. So make sure you get that if you do want to invest in a sketchbook, but you don't need it. Any paper will work. Something to draw with. Reminder, I used a Sharpie. If you're going to paint with watercolors, definitely use a Sharpie, but if you're not, anything will work. And then something to color with, so whatever you happen to have at home. And again, these projects are meant to use whatever you happen to already have. So please don't go out and buy anything unless that's something you just want to personally do. It's totally up to you. So we finished our sunstone piece. We talked about our ancient art of the Aztec culture, and we also learned a few important rules of art. We talked about pattern, we learned about different kinds of lines, curved lines, straight lines, and we also learned about something called radial symmetry, meaning symmetry that comes from the center and goes out. So I hope you enjoyed this art project. If you finished your piece and you would like to send it to me for me to see, I'm going to link my email down below. Please send me an email of your finished piece because I would love to see it. Remember to follow us on Instagram as well, artwithmiss.mcveigh, and have fun creating. I will see you tomorrow.